9, 8, 7, 6. Everybody ready for electronics?
Can you give me like 2 seconds? I just tried to turn on the Wi-Fi.
Sure. So they'll give opening statements and then just direct the questions, and I'll, like earlier today, I'll try to follow them one at a time.
I have a, just talking to the microphone. I don't know if your microphone's working.
Can you hear me?
That's much
That's
better.
better.
Much better.
If you could all do that.
Sure.
That's the mark.
I've checked.
Everybody all set? So, nice to see you all again. And I don't want to repeat, because I'm looking at the meeting, I think other than Pat Ford, everyone has been here. It was at 3:30, 3:30 press conference. But as I said earlier, this is a budget that meets the needs of Rhode Islanders. It's balanced. We take advantage of every federal dollar available to the state. I'm proud of the budget. I'm proud of what's in it. And I'm proud to work with my partners in government, but more particularly my majority leader and my chairman. I want to take one moment before we get into the questions and on the budget. I know there's some questions left over from this afternoon. Most important thing I really want to stress is this was a lot of hard work by Chairman Abney and all the members of the Finance Committee. It's not easy to put the hours in they do before session, after session. This is some very heart-wrenching testimony, some very strong advocates who are very good at advocating for their cause. But at the end, it's a balance of what you have to think is the best opportunity to do the most good for Rhode Islanders. So, and I really want to say thank you, Chairman, for the work that you've done and continue to do since I've been speaking. You've been a key ally, and you have the perfect temperament and the commitment to the time necessary to make it work. As to all the members of the Finance Committee, it's not easy. These are long hearings. Sometimes they get very technical, and sometimes it's very emotional. So I want to thank you. Beyond that, I'd be happy to answer questions on it, and then shortly the Finance Committee will meet and consider the budget. So I'll go to Larry, and then he'll pick that.
Kathy, I saw your hand up first.
I had 3 unanswered questions from earlier,
Okay.
so I'll try to get the words right this time. Number 1, the RIPTA fiscal cliff. Number 2,
The things are one at a time.
okay, but I don't want people to get mad and think I'm asking 3 questions.
Okay, so they were left over, so I'll be brief with them. So RIPTA, like the state, has been a beneficiary of a tremendous amount of federal money. We know that there is a cliff, as you put it, that is heading toward RIPTA. It's going to require long-range planning to address that issue. So there's nothing per se in this budget to address the long-range plan regarding the fiscal cliff at RIPTA. However, there is additional money in this budget for RIPTA for the R line, which is the line that we have now free service, and it is also to continue with that pilot program. And there's also going to initiate a pilot program for South County disabled ridership as well. So there's some additional funds in RIPTA, but they're targeted for those 2 particular areas.
Number 2 was any kind of COLA pension relief for the retirees.
So currently, the COLA, current retirees get a COLA every 4 years. What we've done is taken that same amount of the COLA, and instead of paying it 4 years, we're going to pay it over every 4 years, pay it annually. So that money that they are receiving will be paid instead of waiting 4 years to get that amount. That same amount will be spread out over 4 years. In addition to that, any kind of excess revenues that the state may have and generate next year, 50% of those revenues will be paid into the retirement fund, and 50% will go into the rainy day fund. The third part of the COLA issue that you want me to address is we're going to request from the treasurer, will require from the treasurer, a comprehensive review of the entire retirement security act that was passed about 13 years ago. we're gonna look at this and decide how is it working, what is the impacts of it, do we need to change it, is there anything we have to fix, is there anything we want to do? And there's been a lot of proposals, I believe of 14 different proposals regarding COLA. We're gonna request to get recommendations and studies from that, and we want the general treasurer to report back to us by March 1st of next year.
Before I get to number 3, let me make sure I understand. I think their last 4-year COLA translated on the base to about $350. So instead of giving them $350 once, you're going to take $350, or would have, if this was in place and stretched it out over 4 years.
Yes, and everybody's different. So some people may have 350, some may have a little bit more, maybe some people have less, but at least they don't have to wait 4 years to get whatever that amount is, but they can get it over years. And then it has the other point I made, if there is any excess revenues in the budget for next year, 50% of those revenues will go into the retirement fund.
But it's not $350 a year. It's just taking that what would have been a
Exactly.
one-time payment. and
Yeah, you
stretching
keep
it out.
referring to it as 350. I don't know if it's exactly the same.
It was on the base.
Okay, I think it's whatever that amount is will be divvied up over 4 years instead of once every 4 years.
Okay, and no stipend.
No.
Okay, and then the last question, which was kind of an amalgam of what Nancy asked and what Ed asked, but the foregoing the 3% increase in the gas tax
Yes.
that the governor wanted, that's gone, right?
It's gone. That's correct.
Okay.
All right, Ian?
2 questions.
Sorry,
The Taunton Avenue Collaborative housing proposal in East Providence asked for an appropriation of $28 million in ARPA money. Does the budget fund any part of that?
Yes and no. Let me explain to you. That's a great project. So I think it's a great project. We have 4 very worthy nonprofits that have got together, and in the projections I've seen of building at a very reasonable cost, a significant benefit to the communities that they serve. And I fully support the project and the concept. So instead of having the General Assembly pick individual projects, who gets it, who doesn't, inside of the housing budget, there is an allocation, I believe it's around $21 million that the Secretary has asked for. That will be funded, and he can do that. We, the General Assembly, was requested of $21 million to put an additional $10 million on there. So there'll be $31 million, which I don't want to use the word compete for, but they can apply for, and the Secretary will do an evaluation and some kind of a grading system and a process. And it's my sincere hope, and I've spoken to the Secretary about this project and this fund in general, that they go through some kind of a process that's open and transparent, but in addition to that, to look to fund projects that are shovel-ready, projects that can make a difference very soon or as soon as possible, because I really feel very strongly that the crisis is very severe and it's exasperating, and we need to take the money that we're using, we need to use it in a very prudent and fast way.
Is this $31 million different from the priority housing money that Governor McKee asked for in his supplemental budget?
It is that, and we've added on top of that. We've added an additional $10 million. Inside the housing budget for the Housing Secretary, he has a lot of pockets of money and a lot of available options. There are tax credits that are available that can go into the collaborative, as you talk about, and other projects. There's Sojourner House can make an allocation. The House of Kodak can make an allocation. There's a lot of good organizations that have came forward with proposals, and I think they're all worthy of consideration, but I think they should be done by a professional. The other thing that we have done is we have given the Secretary a lot of FTEs, full-time equivalents for new positions, so he will have the staff to make these decisions and make these decisions in a fast way.
Is it the 21 FTEs he asked for?
I'm sorry?
He asked for 21
I
FTEs.
believe they're all funded. And then there's additional funding in there as well. It came in as a supplement as well.
One more quick question. If we could get Sharon to give us the total number for the budget.
I can give you that.
All right.
It's just slightly over $14 billion.
And the number is?
14 billion, I believe, 200,000. How's that?
Pat had the next question.
Speaker Shikarchi, it wouldn't be another budget meeting if I didn't ask you
How Tidewater.
about Tidewater
I'm surprised. How did I know that?
and the Commerce Corp as well. What's your perspective on commerce in the budget, but specifically to our normal conversation, was there an ask? Is there an ask?
There was no ask, and there is no application to Tidewater project in this budget.
And then overall,
There was no ask of the government.
okay. And overall, any perspective on commerce and where they sit in the process?
I think Liz Tanner is the new secretary. She's doing a good job.
Mhm.
I think the governor asked for some money. I think we trimmed down some money. We did rebuild it. There was a request for $20 million more, $15 million of increased rebuild. And, I think a lot of these programs need to be replenished to be effective. So we made that, we considered the request the governor made, and we hope they go forward on it.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that overall, by and large, I know she's only been there a year or half a year. I think Liz Tanner is doing a good job.
Mhm.
She hits the ground running from her experience at DVR.
Thank you.
Ed, two leftover questions from earlier. $25 million for the South Key Marine project,
That is not in the budget.
and why?
So they have a $35 million opera allocation in the budget that has been left over from last year, or this current year, I should say. So we're going to make sure that they continue to, use that money. And then we're going to also ask for the South Key people aboard or the project to provide some information data to the General Assembly. I believe it's February 1st of 2024. We want to get a little bit of a formal update from what's going on over there before we allocate any new money.
And
But we did not take away the current money that they have, which is $35 million.
and have there been changes made to what the governor proposed for the education funding formula? How is it different?
So I'm going to let Leo Blazajewski, he's been working diligently on this with Peter Pearson, and I'll let him do that. But I want to, I'll come back and want to make some other points after, but I'll let Leo Blazajewski work on this issue.
Yes, thank you, Speaker. I just want to say, Speaker, thank you for all the effort you put in on this budget and Chairman and your committee. Yes, so we have made strong investments in public education in this budget, adding on and building upon what the governor did. Since COVID, we've seen a lot of disruptions in education funding in this state because of declining enrollments. And so we worked with the Senate, and I want to specifically credit Leader Ryan Pearson for his efforts here working with the House to make adjustments. We made adjustments to the share ratio for disadvantaged communities here in Rhode Island. We've also added an additional, and again, I want to credit Leader Pearson again on this, an additional $5 million on top of the governor's additional money for multi-language learners, which puts that categorical at $17 million now. We've also added to the high-cost special ed categorical, which is now at $15 million. We've memorialized various poverty measures based on direct certification programs and added a multiplier. That's to get at the issue as to the poverty metrics in our system. And so in total, we've added an additional $20 million on top of the governor's proposal to education. And in addition, as I believe the speaker mentioned earlier today, the Hope Scholarship is in there. There's investments in CCRI. There's investments in URI, both in terms of infrastructure and in terms of the base. So this budget as a whole will represent a strong investment in the future of public education.
Is there still a hold, I'm sorry, a hold harmless?
Let Larry go, please.
Are you following up on education?
Okay. It's
We'll
your
stay on
answer
education.
to Ed, and I just want to make sure
I know, but you
that's
just jumped in
okay.
front of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll stay on education. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry to be rude about this, but I just want to make sure I understand. The issue was you had a hold harmless. You were paying communities that were losing students to charter schools while paying for the same seats when the kids went to the charter schools. Have you continued that?
Yes, so there's a transition period for everyone here because of enrollment. So there's a 2-year transition period that we've included that provides additional support and revenues for the communities that are seeing transitions in enrollments. And working with the Senate, we're going to have an effort to look in 2 years to see has this effort worked and do we have to make further adjustments to it.
What is the defense of paying twice for one kid, the empty seat and the seat the kids actually occupy?
It's that you have to prepare for the transition, and you can't do that overnight if you're a community and you're trying to provide a high quality education. If enrollments move, you need a period of ramping up or ramping down, and those dollars are there to assist in the declining enrollments.
Speaker, you wanted to add about education?
It's just the leader said this transition is a temporary fix, if you will, or transition until we do that. We've had a lot of upheaval in education because of COVID. And I think this is just proven. We've heard from the school districts throughout the state that they have trouble adjusting to the lack of enrollment. So this is a transition. And I think I'll point out, look, Sharon, we've actually increased it to any school districts, not just losing to charter, but all school districts that lose enrollment have a 12 to 24 month period where states will fund them at pretty much the same level as if they had that student there, because they have fixed costs, and then it actually transitions downward.
And the 20 million is in addition to what?
In addition to the governor's appropriation.
No,
for-
60.
What's that figure?
Well, guys, tell me one at a
One
time.
at a time, please.
Yeah, just what's that figure? 20 million in addition to what figure?
On top of the, so for the, that includes the categoricals and also the amounts that we provide through the distribution of the share ratios.
Do you have a
So
number for that?
I think in total it's like $1.1 something billion in total.
1.2 billion.
But what's the increase? We're both asking
20 million on top of that.
on top of 1.2 billion?
Yes,
Or
correct.
So the governor was adding 1.2 billion?
No, the governor's-
Okay, what's the incremental increase with your 20 million?
50 million. So she's asking, what did the governor increase it, and then we increased it further by?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's total
So it's 30 million.
30,
20
we
on top.
increased it 30, and then we went 20 more. All right, Nancy had the next question?
I just had a trio.
Had a
Just
trio.
asked about the corporate minimum tax.
Oh, you had 3 questions? All right. You gave Kathy 3, so we'll give you 3.
That's the standard.
Go ahead, go ahead.
The corporate minimum tax that the governor proposed, the reduction, is that in the budget?
No, it was very, very small.
Yeah, small one, but
It was very smart, and we'll revisit that at some point in the future. As I pointed out today earlier, that there'll be a new budget cycle starts in about 120 days. So if someone did not get their project or proposal funded, I encourage them to begin the advocacy with the governor's policy office, the governor's people. I see Rico here, and he's available. As a wonderful staffer, and he's more than able to start again as well as we get prepared for next year's budget.
All right, let's go to Nancy next, and Alexa after that, and then Patrick. Trying to
Okay,
get everybody the right questions.
I have 3 also. Gas and electricity tax rebates, there was revisions to what the governor proposed. Can you explain what those revisions are?
So there will be a gross receipts reduction this year. It's a temporary one to help us through. We think will be another year with high energy rates in the winter months. The gas tax, I talked about earlier that it's not in the budget. The gas tax reduction will stay as it is current in the current law. And you talked about I guess it's Article 5, the incentive for renewable energy.
Gross
No,
receipts
so
tax.
It's a gross receipts tax,
Okay.
tax on natural gas and electricity. The governor had proposed a 4-month rebate for winter bills, and
it will be next year.
okay, so is the revision just the date, the time?
Yes, that's the only revision. We made it in this current budget coming up starting July 1st.
So it's gonna be 4 months in the winter of 2024.
That is correct.
Got it.
And that's about $36 million, by the way. And $36 million in utility savings for all of Rhode Island.
Yeah. My second question is about the life sciences quasi-public agency. Is that happening?
Yes, absolutely, it's happening.
Are there changes from what you proposed? in
No,
your
as
legislation?
far as the funding, it's the exact same number the governor did. It wasn't added, it was subtracted.
The structure of the agency.
The structure will be, it'll have its own article in the budget, I believe, or I think it's Article 7, and Karen's telling me. So it'll be proposed very similar to what Massachusetts is doing. And Director Tanner, we talked about Director Tanner, Liz Tanner, under the proposed legislation in the budget, she will serve as the vice chair of the commission.
And no additional pay for any of those members.
No, all the members will serve without compensation,
Got it. Last
including
question.
the chairman, whoever he or she may be.
Right, sure. Last question is about funding for the AG cold case squad.
Yes.
That's it. The full amount?
Yes, it is in the budget. Not the full amount, it's just that cold case unit would be, I believe, fully funded. So the attorney, that's a good question, Nancy. The Attorney General had a request for staffing. I know it's been reported in the media. I believe he asked for about 20 FTEs. We're going to fund 15 FTEs. His division has been successful in obtaining settlements, and he has got a settlement and award for some of the legal work he's done, specifically designed to pay legal fees. So we're going to use that, and we're going to create a restricted receipt account, and we're going to use that money to fund those positions.
Is he okay with that, coming out of settlement money that he may have had other thoughts on?
He is more than okay. He's very satisfied.
Alexa?
Why are we deciding to not fund the Francis Street Armory at this point?
It's not that we're not funding it. There hasn't really been a request for funding. I believe there is a current contract to do design work and evaluation work, and I believe that current contract is continuing. So there is no request for additional funding. There's no real plan or vetted yet by the administration, but I would certainly look upon that project that Scout has been working on. I happen to think it has a lot of merit. I have not been to the facility, but I have spoken, as I'm sure most of you know, with some of the Scout people, and I think the idea has merit and certainly deserves more review.
Okay, we talked about Liz Tanner as the vice chair. Have you spoken to the governor about possibly thinking of Neil Steinberg as the chairman?
I said the other night, and I'll be happy to say again, at the Boston Globe Forum at PBS, I have not asked or spoken to the governor at all about who I think the chairman should be. I happen to think Neil Steinberg would be an outstanding choice. I think he's available, he's excellent, he serves without pay, he's got a lot of great attributes. He knows this very well from his work at the Rhode Foundation. He was part of the proponent of the study that came. He has great contacts in this world. I think he'd be a great choice, and if we can get him and he's willing to do this work without compensation, then I think it'd be a great gift to the state. But I would like to point out that it's not my appointment, it's the appointment of the governor. Subject to advice.
One more for Alexa.
Thanks. So instead of earmarking a budget line to any specific housing projects for, say, the Taunton Avenue, we're going to go through a competitive RFP process. We did the same thing last year when you included in the budget $10 million for public housing authorities. But a year later, that RFP just went out 2 weeks ago. Are you concerned at all that putting together a competitive process is going to just delay construction?
Sure, I don't necessarily think it's a competitive process. It has to be a transparent and some kind of a review process. And I would defer to Secretary Pryor to do that, and I have confidence in him. And I think we've seen collectively a lot more done in the housing field in the last 4 or 5 months than we saw in the first year. So I have confidence in his ability to do that. And since we're talking about housing, I just want to make it very clear, there is going to be no eminent domain in the housing package as well. There is no special powers for eminent domain.
Patrick?
And just to follow up on that, is there additional funds for either the revolving fund or something added to that 10 million, which is still there for?
Yes, there'll be more money added to those programs, and there has to be. There's a lot of exciting, good ideas around affordable housing. But at this point, they're ideas, and we want to make sure that we're funding projects that will get things done as soon as possible. They really need an evaluation by somebody who has the full-time capability and the professional staff to vet these ideas, to make sure the projects have the proper permits, to make sure the projects have the proper funding, to make sure the projects will be on the ground, shovel-ready, and getting things done. I mean, from a state perspective, sometimes we look at these projects and they're good ideas and we get involved in them and they're delayed. So I trust Secretary Pryor, and that's why the money will be given to him to do this. He knows, I have spoken to him, I've spoken to him about the eminent domain stuff, I've spoken to him about a lot of stuff in and around housing. He shares the same vision. He knows that people are around that are hurting. He knows we have to get things done, and he's working very hard to do it. So I think he's the right person to do this. We will keep a watchful eye on this. And I don't want to go backwards, but I think that Secretary Pryor is more skilled in the political arena to deliver things. He's proven that with Thomas, whether you like the projects and things that he's done or not, he's gotten things done. And I'm looking for that same type of production, that same type of ability to get things done in the housing arena.
How much is being added?
Well, his budget request is being funded in full. All of the governor's supplement budgets are being funded in full, and then we put an additional $10 million for projects like the Collaborative in East Providence and projects like the public housing option. So he will vet those. There's additional money, and then also inside of there, we funded a tax credit program. Stefan will have buckets of money that he can mix and match to make sure they fit the right project to get that project jump-started and up and operating as quickly as possible.
On lottery and gaming, is there an iGaming piece in the budget or any revenue related to new gaming enterprise?
No, iGaming is being considered as a separate standalone piece of legislation.
Nursing homes, is there any funding, is there anything in the budget related to nursing home staffing or revenue from fees, fines, and otherwise mandated?
They get their usual allocation. I think there's a small COLA in there or something, a small adjustment. They have an annual COLA. They are being funded in accordance with the current law. There were nothing added or deducted from them. And then also, so you know, I'm sure you know, there's a working group between Representative Knight from the House side, Senator Miller, and the administration, and the nursing home representatives, the owners in the union, as well as the nonprofits and the profits, to try to resolve some of the issues around nursing home staffing.
Is the RIPTA director proposal that was passed by the Senate to make Peter Alvedi the chairman of the RIPTA board, is that in the budget?
Not in the budget, but it's going to get full consideration at the House.
All right, so we're gonna stop it here because Sharon and Jim and Abby have to go down to room 35 and start the process. The committee is anxiously awaiting to get going. You're all welcome to watch the committee process there. They'll be starting pretty soon. They won't start until these two go down there. These two fine gentlemen will stay and answer a few questions as we leave
As best we can.
But
Can I ask one before we ask Lou Sharon?
oh, sure.
Thank you. Going back to the COLA, which I'm still struggling with. Their last COLA was, I think, in 2021. Next one they're due for is 2025. Is the concept to give them something in the new budget year starting July 1 earlier than they otherwise would have gotten it and then stretch it out? Is that the concept?
Yes.
And have you done any math on that, which is given, you know, investments and everything else, what you would be giving them and whether you're changing the base?
No, I'm going to say it's going to follow the formula. We're not, in other words, I don't think there's any changes to the formula per se. The changing will be, as I understand it, changing will be when they receive it. They don't have to wait 4 years. They will get it, same amount of money, they will get it 25% in year 1, 25% year 2, 25% year 3, 25% year 4.
But you're moving it up instead of making them wait until 2020.
That's correct.
We've got to let Sharon and Jim go to start the process. We can do some informal.
Quick question for Leader Wojcicki on education. Two things. Ombudsman, and is there any movement to address what is a looming school construction crisis, particularly in cities like Pawtucket, who are facing their own huge fiscal challenges?
Well, we've spoken with various cities and towns about this issue. We want to see the leaders of those towns find ways to make these construction projects work, given the revenues that they have, whether that involves value engineering or other ways of making the projects work. So, and then Ombudsman, are you talking about?
Yeah.
So I believe this is Representative Warren Carson's bill. Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about? So she's still working on this issue at this time.
Yes.
Yes.
I think it may be in the budget, if I'm not mistaken. It's in the budget. There is an omnibus proposal in the budget that's been worked out with Rhode and some of the advocates in this funding to go along with this.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One more, school lunches.
Last question. There's no school lunches. There's a couple of programs around it. They're not in the budget, but they really have value. We're going to continue spreading them next year.
We're talking about free school lunch for all. That's the one Senate passed, and you're saying there's no. I didn't actually hear you say that.
No, there's going to be a significant amount of money for the food bank. We're going to do some ARPA money to the food bank, to about $3 million.
Nothing
$3 million.
Superman building, nothing additional for Superman building?
No, there's no funding at all for the Superman building.
Is there any funding for the engineering work on the side barriers and the bridges?
Yes,
How much?
there was a request made to increase the study. I don't want to be poor, but I think it was $500,000 or $750. Whatever the request was, it's in the budget.
It's
And-
at
$750,000.
Whatever the ask was, I don't remember, I've done a lot of numbers for.
And bonuses. Last year's budget gave a bunch of bonuses to people. Are there people getting bonuses again in this budget?
Only the boys. There
Are
are no bonuses in this budget.
you sure? Not for the DD population, not for the child care workers, no,
I don't know if you use word bonuses, it's funding, the school over some of the gaps, but there are no bonuses. No one gets a retention bonus that I'm aware of, no one gets, the money that we had last year, that kids have money, that our money, it's not.
I think you may want to get back to me on that, because I got a different answer from the Senate, and I don't want to bias you in.
No, I appreciate that, but I guess it would be the definition of the terms of the word bonus.
I'll take any word you like.
So I think there's, I believe $75 million.
I think they use the
general description for DD, $75 million in there, which is to fund wage increases that are part of the ongoing fees. That's a federal court case.
All right, we have to go.
Folks, we're going to take a break now. We're going down to room 35. We're going to resume broadcasting there in just a couple of minutes. Thank you so much. Please share and follow our social media links. Nights like this is how the sausage is made. We'll be back in just a few minutes.